for three!
Welcome to Minneapolis, Minnesota, as today we're going to be visiting the Target Center, home of the Minnesota Timberwolves, in this 35th Stadium Review episode. And of course, this is brought to you in partnership with Pull Tab Sports. Check out all their articles and podcasts on sports and culture across the Midwest at pulltabsports.com. And if you're a Timberwolves fan, be sure to check out their podcast, Crunch Wears No Pants, focused around the Minnesota Timberwolves. Opening up in 1990, the Target Center in Minneapolis is the second oldest currently active NBA stadium, behind Madison Square Garden, which opened in 1968. Ever since being built, Target has held the naming rights, as they've been headquartered in Minneapolis since being founded in 1902. The Timberwolves actually played their inaugural season in 1989 in the Metrodome, which at the time also hosted the Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Twins, Minnesota Golden Gophers football, and baseball. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves have been the primary tenant of the Target Center since it opened in 1990, but it's also hosted the Minnesota Lynx of the WNBA since 1999.
Green Line train to downtown Minneapolis is arriving on track number 1.
For those of you that don't know, I'm a big fan of taking public transit whenever I go to games, and it's really nice because it's a train station about a block or two away from the arena. And there's actually a lot of really cool bars and restaurants in that block right around the arena. For being an older arena, I was extremely impressed with the exterior, and that's because the exterior was given a facelift in both 2014 and 2017 renovations, as it now boasts a really sleek, dark wooden looking facade that looks extremely modern. And you can see several of these ramps that go straight from the parking structures into the stadium itself, so you don't have to freeze your butt off like I did while outside the arena. And of course, right next to the Target Center is the very appropriately named Target Field of the Minnesota Twins that opened up in 2010. And the purple hue in the sky was because all the buildings around downtown Minneapolis were emitting a purple light to get everyone pumped up for the upcoming Minnesota Vikings playoff game, which I was fortunate enough to visit, so feel free to check out that video as well after this one. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy visiting different stadiums and seeing different places like this. However, one of the coolest elements to the exterior of the arena is something that you can't see from the ground, as in 2009, they installed the NBA's first ever green roof, as this has a lot of environmental benefits, such as alleviating some of the urban heat island effect, providing wildlife habitat, improving air quality, and mitigating the impacts of stormwater on impervious surfaces.
Well, I'm cold, and I think we've seen everything there is to see outside, so I'm gonna go in the stadium now.
So I entered the stadium in the new main gate, which is a big atrium on the corner of North 6th Street and North 1st Avenue. And I really love the Target dog bronze statue right when you get in. This was added as part of the 2014 renovations, and it really gives a nice entrance to the stadium that's pretty wide open and easy to filter fans in and out of so they don't have to wait in the cold before getting through the gates. And I really loved the basketball net style chandelier hanging above it. When you go up a level towards the gates, there's a ton of display cases showcasing the history of the Timberwolves, the Lynx, and Minnesota basketball in general, as well as all the numerous historic concerts that have taken place at this venue throughout the years. This was kind of a unique entrance of how the gates were laid out, as they had a long row of all these different turnstiles to go through. But let's get through, go up a level, and check out the main level concourse. You can see a lot of the renovations that are made to the stadium throughout the concourse as a whole, as it definitely doesn't look like a stadium that was originally built in the 80s, as the whole concourse is trimmed with a mixture of brick and wood elements that gives it a nice modern feel to it. I found this plaque that was pretty cool that says Timberwolves team members. I wasn't sure if this is all the staff on hand or staff that have worked at this arena. Regardless, it was a pretty cool nod to the organization. I was actually surprised at some of the openness that the concourse had to the seating bowl itself, as a lot of NBA stadiums don't really have that visibility from the concourse level. There's actually a really cool kids zone as well, which had this awesome bobblehead of the Target dog, as well as a mascot dressed up. And this photo booth where you held at the camera when it took a picture was a fantastic touch and seemed like a huge hit in the arena. While going from level to level in the concourse, I did have a peek inside the club level, but they wouldn't let me get very far without a ticket to that area. The upper concourse was more of the same, but definitely had a little bit more of an older aesthetic to it. But there was a fantastic area where you could look down over that kid zone. There is a fun spinner being played by the Minnesota Lottery, and I won the prize that I was going after, the koozie. And something really cool happened a little bit after in the game, which I'll get to here in a second, but because of that, I felt like I needed to give back to the team and purchase something at the team store. So on the upper concourse, they have a team store that has a ton of discounted merch, and I snagged this t-shirt from last year's playoffs for 17 bucks. So a quick change into it, and now we're reppin'. Raised by Wolves. That's a great slogan for me since I was always a wild child growing up. And for food, they had this really cool barbecue brisket burger with haystack onions on it, served with fries. However, this is something that I don't think I've ever really said before, but the hamburger was way too dry for my liking. So I had to slather it on with some extra barbecue sauce, and now it's tasting a lot better. I also enjoyed that they had plenty of water fountains around the arena, because that's something that I always look for. What I really liked about the seating in the venue is when you initially get in and they scan your ticket, they give you a little tiny paper copy of the ticket, so then you know exactly where you're going and don't have to constantly be pulling your phone ticket out. The seating's laid out with 2 large levels with private seats and boxes in between the two. The first thing that I was really drawn to once getting into the seating bowl itself was the court. This court design is meant to pair with your 2022-23 City Edition jerseys, as the colors on the jersey are supposed to represent the city's very vibrant musical and arts cultures. Although the black and white logo in the center isn't really doing much, I really do enjoy all the different colors going around the exterior of the court. Something that I was tipped off about from a viewer of the channel is how they often block out a lot of the seats in the upper sections, especially those behind the baselines. And that's because the Timberwolves just aren't getting the attendance to fill up the stadium. It can hold up to 18,798 for basketball games. And so far this year, the Timberwolves are 27th out of 30 when it comes to attendance, filling only about 87% of their seats at home this year. But they are having a pretty alright season so far this year, as they're around 500 and have a pretty decent chance of making the playoffs or at least the play-in games. So when I was up high on my upper level seat, getting some establishing shots of the arena, something really cool happened, as a member from the Timberwolves staff came up to me, asked if I was alone, and asked if I wanted to be relocated to a better seat. And of course I was like, sure, why not? So they handed me a new little paper ticket, and I made my way down. Now I noticed this was going to be row G. I'm like, wow, that's pretty close. And when I got into the section, I realized, wow, this is center court. And entering behind this guy, I kind of felt a little bit out of place in just my typical flannel versus his big fur coat. But have a look at this fantastic view. Big thank you for the Timberwolves staff for randomly picking me to do this, and I'm going to go ahead and say that you picked the right person, since after all, I am reviewing the experience here. And these new seats gave me a great view to some of the private seating and courtside options, as well as all the banners hanging up in the rafters for the past Lynx and Timberwolves players and teams.
Minneapolis, it's time to hear y'all for your Minnesota Timberwolves. From day one, 6'5" from Georgia, and the Timberwolves one, Anthony Edwards.
The atmosphere was really starting to get revved up during the player announcements. But wait, Crunch is supposed to wear no pants. What the heck's going on here, guys? I like that proclamation of "we don't sit until we score." That's pretty good. And here we go, now Crunch is back to being pantsless. Perfect. They had a lot of fun gags and gimmicks going on through the game, such as the always popular t-shirt toss. And I really enjoyed the howl off that they did, and I was lucky enough that they did it between the two center sections, with everyone in the winning section getting a $10 Target gift card. However, I am a little bit convinced that it might have been predetermined, since before we even had the howl off, I saw a ton of people in the aisle holding these envelopes.
2, 3,
Regardless, my section won, so I'll take that $10 gift card any day. A seat upgrade, now a gift card? Heck, I was feeling like it was my lucky day. The lower bowl seating sections were pretty well filled in, but the upper sections were a little bit dispersed in some locations. And I think part of that is because the stadium has such an older configuration. You can do a lot to rework some of the exterior in the concourse, but you can't really change the sightlines from the upper seating bowl that much during a renovation. And for the overall experience, I think this may be the most fun that I've had at an NBA game thus far. From the other NBA stadiums that I've gone to, either there wasn't enough promotions going on, or there were so many promotions, gags, gimmicks, and music going that you couldn't actually focus on the game itself. Here, I felt like they had a really good mix and balance between those promotional bits and being able to watch and focus on the game, which I really enjoyed. The game itself was very high paced and back and forth, but the Timberwolves came out on top with a final score of 121 to 116. In trying to sneak out the arena through a back staircase and beat some of the crowds, I saw this awesome really large poster of Kevin Garnett, so I felt like I definitely chose the right path out. But that's gonna do it here from the Target Center in Minneapolis. Be sure to follow Pull Tab Sports on all the social media platforms, and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And feel free to follow me on social media as well. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again soon in another Stadium Review episode. Thanks. Bye.